Hey everyone, it's Michael Kikle. I hope you're doing well today, and I have a review here for Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire, the newest film from this year that I missed in theaters, even though I really wanted to make it out to see it, but it didn't happen. It usually doesn't. I can't make it to theaters very often. This is the newest MonsterVerse film for the American movies. I'm going to give you kind of a quick rundown for my thoughts on the previous films, just to kind of give you a taste of that in case you're new to the channel. But number one, I love Godzilla 2014. Yeah, I wanted more Godzilla, but what I got in the dose I got, with some Bryan Cranston in there, the kind of real drama center of that movie, I loved it. I think it's fantastic. Then you had Godzilla, King of the Monsters, I believe the title is. Whatever that second Godzilla movie was called, and I fucking hated it. I thought it was awful. I hate that movie. So boring. Then you move on to, already off to a rough hot take, aren't we? Then I move on to Kong Skull Island. Hated it, thought it was so generic and dull. Poorly made knockoff of Peter Jackson's film, but kind of not. Even so, not crazy about it. And then we got Godzilla vs. Kong in 2020? I think is what it was when the pandemic was going on. And I loved that film. I was so shocked by how much I loved it. Went into it not knowing that Adam Wingard, who also directed this movie because of how well he did there, I'm assuming, was going to direct that one. And it had this synth-wavy score, and it focused less on humans, but when it had humans involved, a little bit more than this movie has, matter of fact. They were good. I didn't hate them. Rebecca Hall was there, I'm pretty sure. Dan Stevens was there, which was awesome. I love Dan Stevens, who works with Adam Wingard a lot. And Adam Wingard, like I said, directed this film too, Godzilla x Kong, The New Empire. Godzilla vs. Kong might be my favorite of the series, but this is really close behind it. I love Godzilla 2014, but this is right up there with it for me. I was so impressed with this movie after watching it. Can I just tell you that? I went into it thinking that Godzilla x Kong's trailers looked so awful, looked absolutely pitifully bad, and I just was not down for it, even though I knew Adam Wingard was going to probably make a good film. The only films I've never liked from the guy were his Blair Witch reboot, sequel, remake sorta kinda, and The Guest, starring Dan Stevens. But it was cool to see Rebecca Hall and Dan Stevens coming back for this, and the younger girl, who was from the previous film, the deaf girl, who does sign language with Kong. And then you even had the one guy from Kong. It was Godzilla vs. Kong. He was like the podcaster dude that was kind of a conspiracy theorist dude, but he was also in the Child's Play remake. Really like him. He's pretty good. Once again, him coming back here, he's good as well. But essentially, Godzilla and Kong have a peace treaty that they're still upholding at this point. Kong stays within the hollow earth, but Godzilla maintains the surface of the earth. And apparently he sleeps inside of the Roman Colosseum, which is the funniest and cutest shit I have ever seen in my life. But Kong rules within his hollow earth, like I mentioned, and he's killing other animals, he's eating those other animals, so on and so on. And the poor guy, this really started off the film on a great note for me. The poor fella has a toothache. He has a cracked tooth, and he needs a dentist. And Kong really has a lot of pain from that. The boy can barely eat because of it. It's really sweet. Not sweet, or not really cute, because that hurts. But it just really humanized him. I don't know if they have an actor doing the mocap for him, but dude, if they do, that person needs just as much love and appreciation as somebody like Andy Serkis, who did Snoke and Gollum and so on and so on. This person deserves that too if they exist, because man, the facial expressions they give Kong are just amazing. I mean, truly. Godzilla, not so much, because Godzilla doesn't really have much in the facial department. But Kong, they really try to humanize. In the previous couple of films that Kong was in, which I loved him in Godzilla vs. Kong, like I said, but this was really fantastic. And this is don't mistake it, a straight-out Kong movie. There is no reason to not have this called Kong such and such. By the way, I love how the title is kind of Japanese in that style, with the X in there. It's a new touch on something in American cinema, to have American filmmakers make this and call it Godzilla x Kong, not Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire, something like that, even though that's what the X stands for. But not literally having the word "and" right there is very interesting to me that they were willing to do that. Anyway, getting back to Kong, though, I kept seeing him in trailers having this golden arm thing, and I didn't know what that was. I do not want to spoil that for you. If you haven't seen the film, even though I typically talk about spoilers on this channel, I think I'm going to avoid it for this movie, because I really don't want to ruin too much for you if you haven't seen it. It is a hell of a watch, man, if you haven't checked it out yet, excuse me. I worked outside yesterday on some Christmas decorations, so if I sound stuffy, that's why. I'm also a little scatterbrained in general, because the last few days have been crazy Christmas decorating stuff all the time. And Thanksgiving, which was awesome. I hope you guys had a good one too. But anyway, Kong. Back to my boy Kong. The poor guy, he goes down into the Hollow Earth where he's been staying, and he finds another level of some sort that eventually I think is called like the Subterranean, or the Subterranean Earth, or something like that. And basically there's a whole new level that has other Kongs, maybe not as strong or as tough as he is, but other giant monsters that are basically monkeys. One of them being a really tiny monkey that I kept seeing in the trailers, and I was like, oh my god, because of the golden arm on Kong, they're going to kill his ass and probably replace him with this baby Kong or Kid Kong or whatever he's called in the Donkey Kong universe. I was scared to death that was going to happen. Thankfully, I ended up liking this red-haired tiny monkey character. I thought he would annoy the shit out of me, but to be honest with you, whoever was playing that, it had to have been mocap, I'm convinced of that. Whoever was playing that did really good. I really, really enjoyed this. It'll be kind of interesting to see what happens in another Kong movie after this. What's even next? Are we doing something else? Are we doing like a Mothra movie? Hopefully not, because Mothra sucks dick. But I don't know what they're going to do. I'm super curious what they're going to do with the series, But for this particular instance, Kong at least, happens to meet up with this red monkey who's very lanky and pale. I've had people describe him as a meth head, and that's hilarious because I could totally see it. And he has like a spine of some kind of like lizard that he's using as a weapon instead of like Kong with the axe. And he immediately from the get-go has to show his dominance and fight Kong. And this is our big villain of the movie. But on the end of that like long, spine that he uses as kind of a whip and kind of like a sword in some points, basically at the end of that, there's like this blue crystal. And it turns out he and his little small kingdom, I don't even know the name of this monkey villain, by the way. I think he's called the Empire or Emperor or something like that. I don't know. I don't care. Basically, he has this little blue, like, diamond-looking thing, crystal, whatever, and when he does certain things and points in certain directions, it lights up real bright blue. But it turns out he and his kingdom have some kind of Godzilla-like monster. I don't know who this is. I've never heard of this monster. I've not seen all the Godzilla films from back in the day in Toei, so forgive me for that. But this thing is like an ice Godzilla. You know how Godzilla shoots fire? This one shoots ice. And it's like an albino lizard. It's fucking cool, man. But it's basically a slave to them. They treat it like an animal, And they can command it, or at least the leader, the meth head-looking red ape thing, can command it to do things because of how he controls it with the crystal on the end of his spine weapon thing. And that's basically the general gist of what's going on here. Those people realize Kong exists, that meth head leader wants to kill Kong, and then you have like Rebecca Hall, Dan Stevens, guy from Child's Play remake, and the little girl who's deaf, trying to figure out how to help. Of course, there are the voices, kind of like in a typical, and in my opinion, more like the original Godzilla Toei movies. They're really trying to fit in by explaining what's happening to the audience. But there's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of violence amongst the monsters, which was sick. I loved all of that. Yeah, the humans have some good human character jokey moments. I think Rebecca Hall is awful in here. Just boring, and she has that short haircut. She's just awful. I can't stand her in this. And she's trying to, because there's this whole subplot about her daughter not fitting in, the deaf kid, not fitting into, kind of what they consider to be the regular world. And they have some discoveries about her past and the tribe that she's from, since she's an Indian or whatever she is. But they do some discovering of her tribe that used to exist and how they think she's the final one from that group of people. And that stuff I even liked quite a bit too. I think the film has so much to offer in so many ways, but man, it's mostly about the monsters, honestly. It's mostly about the fights, it's mostly about the CGI, which, dude, the special effects in this movie are phenomenal. I know we say that pretty much about every movie nowadays, but man, I am really impressed with the things they were able to do here, and the fights are so unique and cool. To have a movie that I recently saw that people raved about, Alien Romulus. Not going to get into my thoughts. I plan on reviewing that on my horror channel, Night of the Living Dude, in case you're curious about where that channel is and what it is. But I typically review movies there, just movies. Alien Romulus, people talked about how creative and dark and cool all of these things were in it. The taking down the aliens and that kind of thing. And to me, they have nothing in them worth preaching about when it comes to those moments. Whereas Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, I don't think I knew anybody who went to see this in the theaters, and it makes me sad because of how good it was, how great it was. Again, there's people like my dad that love this kind of thing, and I don't think he even went to see it, and he usually makes it to the theater with his wife to see it. So, I don't know. I thought this was a blast, man. I had such a good time watching this. I have a DVD copy. This is the thing. I could only find it on DVD at the store I went to when I bought it like a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, pre-Black Friday. Supposed to be part of the sales, but you know how that goes. I bought a DVD copy of it, and I noticed like around the edges of a lot of scenes with humans, everything looks super blurry, and people keep saying that's DVDs. I'm convinced there's some kind of tampering, just to get into a small conspiracy here. I'm convinced there's some tampering with modern DVDs to make them look like shit compared to Blu-rays. Maybe the Blu-ray also has that blur around some of the outside. I don't know, but it reminds me of fisheye lens a little bit. It's not a problem with the TV. It's not a problem with the PS4 I played it on. It's modern day movies on DVD. But I never see it many on Blu-rays, you know? I saw it on The Crow. I just watched The Crow, the remake with Bill Skarsgård, whatever his name is. I just saw that. I had some moments in that had the same thing, and I watched that on Blu-ray. So I don't know what's going on. Is that a modern film technique? Because I remember the Batman from Matt Reeves having blurry backgrounds and stuff constantly throughout the movie. Especially one scene with Commissioner Gordon. You know, like the sides, like everybody standing on his sides at the podium were super blurry. That happened a lot on this DVD, and I don't know if it's the movie or the DVD, so I'm just throwing that out there in case you haven't seen it. That, to me, is becoming more and more distracting with how many movies are doing it. Why the hell would you do that to a film? Either on DVD release, if it's just for that, to fuck with people and make them get 4K and Blu-ray, which in my opinion is wrong, but at that point, it's not a clarity issue. That's not the problem here, you know? But anyway, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire was phenomenal. I loved it. If I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, there is no doubt in my brain that I would give it a 5 out of 5 stars. And again, I think I love Godzilla vs. Kong the most out of all the movies. It's tied right there with 2014 Godzilla as my personal favorite. But this is right up there easily in the top 3. This is such a great flick, man. And like I said, the little moments of humanization, like with Kong and the toothache, and some other things they do in here, they really got to me. There were moments that I felt genuinely bad for Kong, and kind of bad for Godzilla. You know, there were the moments I laughed, like Godzilla getting in the Roman Colosseum and sleeping. That stuff was so wonderful. Really enjoyed this quite a bit. So if you haven't seen Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, you should check it out. I think it's worth any cent you spend on it. If you love the previous films, especially Godzilla vs. Kong, you're going to love this. It is such a blast, dude. So let me know what you think about it down below if you haven't seen it before. I'd love to hear everything you have to say about it. Thank you all for watching, guys. God bless you all. Catch you later, and goodbye.